I've been playing Minecraft for over 12 years. In 2013, I purchased Minecraft and I've been playing ever since. But I noticed recently that I've never actually done a true playthrough of the old beta versions of the game. Sure, I've played and looked around at how much the game has changed over the years, but I have never actually sat down and played the game in the state it was back then, until today. So join me on this 100 days adventure where I go back to the game's roots and experience what others experienced back when the game was considered new. The very first thing I did, as anyone does when they create a Minecraft world, was come up with an amazing original name for the save file. Let's call this Isle of Jetamore. No, not Isle, I don't like Isle. Kingdom of... Oh, jeez, Zavloko. Kingdom of Zavloko, as well as a very self-affirming seed. Z-Train is very cool. Create world. Before we begin, I just want to say that this is my first time ever making content like this, so I apologize in advance if it's a little all over the place, but I'd greatly appreciate your feedback in the comments below. So, without further ado, let's jump into Minecraft beta. As I spawned into my world, I immediately noticed an issue. The old Minecraft skin system had decided to remove my only remaining real arm and replaced it with an exact copy of my cybernetic arm, so I suppose I've got to live with that now. The texture for both my arms, so I've lost both my arms for this playthrough. But that's fine. After having a little look around at where I spawned, I found some pumpkins and immediately had to test something. Also, there's some pumpkins here, which... Can you wear these in this version? Oh, you can! That's my new hat. Moving on from the joy of putting a pumpkin on my head, I immediately dug around for a bit and almost immediately found iron, which was pretty neat to see so quickly. In the few times I've played a bit of beta, I remember it taking me forever to find any ores, so yeah, that was pretty cool. Once I got a few bits prepared from spawn, I began to think of what the place I would call home would look like. I knew I wanted to use brick in my build, as I'd seen many screenshots of beta Minecraft builds including brick whilst I was planning this series, and I thought they looked pretty cool. However, luckily for me, I spawned right next to some clay, so getting a decent amount of clay. But there is some clay for bricks wasn't going to be too difficult of a task. I then set off looking for the perfect spot for my base. I did have a brief encounter with a creeper, but he seemed more interested in the cave that surrounded him than actually attacking me, which was pretty nice of him. It's gone off, alright. Well, I can get some coal. Okay, he really wants me and I'm scared of him. A little later on, I did collect some flowers, and then went on a small rant about how I missed the OG rose flower, which, seriously, I really do wish they were still in the game. I do want to get some roses, though, because roses are cool, and I miss them a lot. Because the rose bushes in current versions aren't the same, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. And with that, the sun quickly began to set, so I crawled into a hole in the wall and called it a day on, well, day 1. As I emerged from my hole in the wall on day 2, I immediately set off continuing my journey, looking for the perfect spot, tormenting some cows on the way as I needed some skin for their clothes. Which, by the way, that sounds really morbid when I say it like that. Hello, cow. Hello, Mr. Cow. I'm going to steal your leather. Thank you. There's a creeper there. I'm not going down there. No. No. I ended up encountering an ocean, which I was honestly hoping for as I wasn't a huge fan of the area I'd spawned in. So I quickly set off on a boat looking for far distant lands in which I'd hopefully call home. Luckily, my boat journey didn't last too long, as I quickly discovered exactly what I was looking for. A mountainous area quickly came into my view. Oh, wow. Look at this. This might be the spot. Whilst I was having a look around at the area I just discovered, the sun began to set, of course, which only meant one thing. It was time to crawl into a hole again and say goodnight to day 2. Once again emerging from the cold hole I temporarily called home, I decided, finally, to get to work. I immediately found a spot for my base, and after some terraforming using the crappy stone tools I had on me, I began laying out what would be the outline for my new house. I don't know why, but the very first thing I did was place my door down, which... Sure, I guess doors are important after all. But despite that, I did also begin to place the foundations for the house in a circular pattern, as I had the idea for a large tower with different sections coming out the top, which I think I'm loosely inspiring off of Jerry's tree from that old Captain Sparkles series, but we'll see where it goes. Because as of writing this part of the script, I have only done the first stream. During this, I did also meet a friendly spider, which I quickly decided to murder, which I do feel a bit bad about. He really didn't deserve that. I might make a grave for him or something. I'm gonna go ahead and let stream train it. Beep boop. I'm gonna go ahead and let stream I can't fucking say that. I'm gonna go for fuck's sakes. I'm gonna go ahead and let Stream Train explain the vision for the house properly. And I think I wanna do some sort of circular tower thing with like a big platform at the top. I did also decide to use my only iron on an axe, as I really needed as much wood as I can get, but looking back I totally could have just made a bunch of stone axes and I would have been fine. Also, I'm gonna use my only iron to make an iron axe because I need so much wood, which might be a waste. I might be an idiot for this, but... During that, I did also collect a bunch of sand for glass, as I had a vision for large windows on the tower, but before I could actually get around to collecting the sand, day 3's sun began to set, so I, to no surprise to anyone, crawled back into the hole and said farewell to day 3. Waking up to a new sun, I had a look around at the surface and quickly spotted a very large beach just a few blocks from where I was planning to build. So with glass still on my mind, I headed down to collect as much as I could. Returning home, I continued the housework and decided on the bottom layer being primarily brick, glass, and smooth stone. I did, however, need to collect a bunch of cobblestone to turn into what I thought would be stone brick, a mistake I would notice later on. I did encounter a cave, but I decided that for my own safety I would avoid said cave and mine into the floor instead. During this trip, I found a bunch of iron and coal, so that was pretty awesome. Okay, I'm just gonna go off script here and just tell you. I originally wrote down part of the script to say, please go ahead and laugh at my horrible jokes. Please, I'll wait. But no. I'm just gonna move on from that. That's really... That mining trip did also conclude the 4th day of this world. So with that, once again, I set my head upon the pillow of my bed and awaited the birth of day 5. In the morning, I decided to head back up to my base with the intention of smelting up as much stone, clay, and glass as I could with the coal I had collected, which luckily turned out to be enough for all those things for now, but not before encountering a new friend. Tree Cow, who I also decided to murder. Look, I'm sorry, I needed leather. I might make a grave for him in the future. Tree Cow? Tree Cow! Oh my god! You're dead now. Sorry. Remember earlier how I mentioned I wasn't aware stone bricks weren't in this version of Minecraft? Yeah, this is the point I realized. Wait, is there not stone bricks in this version? Is there not? Oh. That changes things, because I was going to use stone bricks for this, but I might just use bricks. Moving on from that, I continued placing the walls for the bottom layer of my base, which I ended up using stone slabs and glass floor, which I think ended up looking pretty cool, and is in fact exactly what I was envisioning before I'd even started the build. And then there's gonna be... this is gonna go up quite far. As I was building, I did remember I downloaded some texture packs to try out, but I'll let the video explain what happened. I did download a texture pack, which I don't know if I might have to leave, to have a look. There we go. I don't think that's supposed to be like that. What about Faithful? Nope, that's also broken. It appears the texture sheets have been a bit damaged. The sun did begin to set shortly after this, so like the 5 times before, I scurried into a pit and left day 5 behind. On day 6, I finally finished placing all of the glass and stone slabs I needed for the bottom layer of the base. And with that completed, I noticed I was running pretty low on wood, so my next task was to go and do a little bit of deforesting. But that was very quickly interrupted by a creeper who clearly wanted to come and check out my house. Oh, hello. Oh no. So to hide from the creeper temporarily, I decided to work on the floor of my house, which I think ended up looking pretty cool. After finally dealing with the creeper, it does appear that there seems to be a bit of a situation here. Gosh. Ah! He's dead! Okay. Woo! I set out on my earlier plan to gather more wood for the build, and once again, I was rudely interrupted by yet another creeper, this time having a rather close call with its explosion. We'll go down here and... oh, hello. Oh no. Oh. Which I'm going to blame my snail time reaction speed on, because seriously, why did I stare at it like that? At this point, I basically just gave up on the idea of getting more wood for now, and instead decided to begin visualizing what the area was going to look like. I think what I'm going to do is there's going to be a big staircase going down here, and then I will have like farms and stuff down here, and maybe like an actual mine. I did soon overcome my fear of creepers, and finally, for real this time, set off to gather wood. But of course, not without a brief jump scare once again from a pig walking around this time. I did also have a pretty funny realization about how to gather seeds in this version, as I remembered at one point seeing that you had to get them by hoeing the ground, and I couldn't remember if that was the way to get them in this version. How do you get seeds in this version? Alright. Skipping forward a bit, after losing my stone sword earlier during the first creeper encounter, I decided to use a bit of the iron I collected earlier to make a sword, which I think was a pretty good investment, which also led me to noticing that day 6 was quickly coming to a close, so I headed back into the safety of my mostly finished house, put a temporary dirt roof on, and called it a night. With the final day of the first in-game week on this world, I finally finished the flooring for the house before taking a moment to admire what I've created so far. I did finish the first stream at this point, and ended up fixing some issues I was having with bitrate, so hopefully from now on, the overall quality will be better. I started the next stream with the intention of cutting down a bunch of trees around my base, and this time I actually did it, unlike previously where I'd get distracted by something like a creeper. Though I will say, of course, there are more than likely enough creepers to come, so what can you do? After my stint of tree chopping, I spotted a wolf on the hill just over by the base, and immediately got excited. You see, I'm very lonely in this world. No villagers to pretend are my friends, no actual friends. So seeing this wolf opened up a whole new world to me. However, after grabbing the only bone I had collected, I went over and attempted to tame the fella. But unfortunately, to my heart-shattering surprise, I was unsuccessful in my taming, which did sort of result in me staring off into the distance for a while, thinking about what could have been if only I had a few more bones on me. Shortly after accepting this heartbreak, I went back to chopping trees for the rest of the day, and went to sleep and wished for a wolf to show up tomorrow, allowing me to tame him. Waking up on day 8, I felt determined to finally get started on something other than my house. I really needed some sort of farm. However, in typical Z-Train fashion, I very quickly got distracted by a skeleton, and things almost turned sour pretty quick by me immediately falling into a hole and losing a decent chunk of my health. Oh no! Oh god. However, due to my epic building skills I learnt from Fortnite, I quickly built out of said hole and took down the skeleton. Shortly after, I did notice that the sun was setting. However, instead of sleeping as I usually do, I instead decided to go mining for a while, with the intention of finally finding some diamonds. Also, I just want to say, I 100% forgot about that farm I was supposed to make during this day. Don't worry, I do get around to it eventually. So, with my pickaxes, why did I make so many pickaxes? With my hundreds of pickaxes on hand, I headed down into the mines and dug. I sort of feel like this is what it's like to be a worm in an apple, which I don't really know how to feel about. But, in the biggest stroke of luck ever, not even 10 minutes into my mining session, I struck gold. Well, in this case, the gold is diamonds. But I did also find some actual gold, which I did use for something later. It's not playing the animation for me mining. No way! Oh my days. That was so much quicker than I was expecting. I did also stumble upon some more diamonds a little further on, but I don't know, the excitement of finding those first diamonds had sort of worn off by then. Coming out of my cave on what I had to assume was the start of day 9 at this time, I discovered it was raining pretty hard, but luckily that ended pretty quickly. Oh, it's raining. Whoa. I mentioned earlier in the video I intended to use gold for something. Well, for the first time in the 12 years I've been playing Minecraft, I made a clock. I thought in this case it would end up proving quite useful, as I didn't have any other way to easily track day cycles like you do in modern Minecraft. However, after immediately forgetting about the clock, I got to work on finishing the roof of my house, as previously it was just dirt, and as much as I vibe with the green top design, it doesn't quite work for this build, unfortunately. The roof did end up taking quite a bit of time, but I think I like what I eventually came up with for now. I did have a brief confusion about beta features, as I could have sworn you could skip a ladder every other block in this version, and it would still count as a fully climbable ladder, but I guess not. After that brief distraction, I got back to work on the roof, but unfortunately, before I could finish that, day 9 began to come to a close. So I rushed to cover the massive hole in the roof that I hadn't finished, and went to sleep and slept eagerly, awaiting what's to come on day 10. Starting day 10, I got back to work on the roof of the house. I think I really needed that sleep, because I had a good idea for the roof straight away. So before I could let anything distract me, I got to work on the new design. I ended up going for a bit of a checkerboard pattern using smooth stone and cobblestone, but I think I might replace the cobblestone with glowstone in the future. After finishing the roof, I began work on the second floor of the base. But surprise, surprise, I got distracted by the idea of another mining trip as I'd noticed I'd run out of iron. Returning from mining for about 20 minutes, I emerged with the plan to finally begin work on that wheat farm I mentioned earlier. So I crafted a bucket with my newly found iron and headed over to the nearest water source to scoop some up for me to use for the farm. Earlier in the stream, I'd noticed an almost perfect circle in the middle of the grassy area outside my house, and it gave me the idea to base my farm around that. But that quickly didn't happen after I realized I'd need to go get more water to finish the edges of it. But all of what I just said was ended pretty short because, as it happens every day, day 10 began to come to a close. Emerging from my slumber, I got straight back to work on the wheat field. Before I left my house, I decided to craft some fences for that trick I mentioned earlier, which is where I realized fences are crafted very differently in this version. So for the first time, so far probably, I had to Google a crafting recipe for Minecraft. I don't remember how to make fences in this version. Is it... No. I'm gonna have to Google it. What? It's just sticks? I really felt like I was playing Minecraft for the first time at this point, which was kind of weird. Before I got started on the wheat field, I did discover a guy burning in the sunlight, so I went over to check if he's okay, and he started showcasing violence towards me. Getting back to the wheat field, I began digging out the area below to place the fences, but then the absolute most amazing thing happened. A wolf jumped into the hole that I just dug and killed a sheep, almost like he was intentionally trying to become my friend. So, using the bones I'd obtained from the skeleton earlier, I prayed to the wolf gods that this guy would accept my gift and become my friend, but he didn't tame. But then I remembered that I had more bones in my house, so I headed up hoping he wouldn't run off or despawn, grabbed the bones and went back over. And I'm just gonna let the clip play out as I think my reaction explains a lot. Yes! Oh my god! Oh my god, we have a friend! Oh, come on, buddy. He came into my life in such a murderous way. That is the best thing ever. Minecraft's absolute fire soundtrack began to play, and it really started bringing back memories of when I first started playing Minecraft. I never realized playing such an old version of the game would genuinely make me so nostalgic for the times I'd come home from school and just stay up with my friends playing Minecraft for hours on end, doing stupid shit and building the worst creations known to humanity. After this... Whoa. After the small nostalgia trip, I finished the farm, but ended up not using that circular pattern. Day 11 began to come to a close shortly after that, so I headed back home and spent some time with my new best friend, and went to bed and awaited what would become of day 12. I began day 12 by planting some seeds on the new wheat field. And by seeds, I mean seed. Just the one seed. So after breaking a bunch of grass, I came back and planted a decent amount, with the plan to plant the rest as the rest grows. Once I'd gotten a decent amount of seeds down on the wheat field, I got to work on what would become the pathway leading from my house, down to the lower parts of the area. However, after placing down the gravel for the roads, a pretty uneventful day 12 began to come to a close. So I said farewell to the day once again, and went to sleep with the intention of completing the staircase in the morning. Waking up on day 13, I noticed a pig had gotten into the wheat field despite the fact I had put a fence around the entire area, which I'm still confused how he got in there. After dealing with the pests, I immediately got back to work on the staircase and ended up with a design using cobblestone, planks, logs, and fences, which I ended up liking quite a lot, but I may end up changing it in the future as I noticed it was ever so slightly floating, but that'll be an easy fix, I imagine. I spent a decent chunk of the remainder I had of day 13 cleaning out the mess I'd left outside my house when I first arrived to the area. After another uneventful day, day 13 began to come to a close as expected. So once again, I lay my head down and await what's to come for day 14. I spent the morning of day 14 exploring the area around my house, but then got scared back home because I remembered how easily I tend to get lost in Minecraft. After returning home, I decided it was time to get back to work on building the second floor of the house. So I crafted up some bricks and grabbed a few other things I needed and got to work. I wanted to go for generally a similar style style as the first floor, but with a few minor changes just to make it look at least a little bit unique. As day 14 began to come to a close, I realised I really needed to lighten up the areas I'd built in with some torches. So before the sun fully set, I headed down and placed a bunch in the hopes it would stop at least some mobs from spawning directly on my lawn. Day 15 began and I immediately got back to work on my house, determined to finally finish the second floor as I'd been getting pretty distracted every day since I originally said I was going to finish it. As I mentioned on day 14, I wanted to go for a similar style as the first floor, but with a few minor changes, mostly to the walls and roof. I ended up sort of liking what I'd done, but I think I'm going to revisit it at a later date because looking at it now I think it's a bit too similar. I thought it would be kind of funny to temporarily flex my wealth, so I used the small amount of diamonds I had and crafted them into a block to put in my floor. I tried to come up with an idea for something to make the front and sides of the house look less flat looking, but I really don't like what I came up with, so I think they'll be gone in the future. Or I'll just end up changing it somehow, I'm not too sure yet. For the end of day 15, I had a look around at the area I'd created so far in the series, and I'm pretty proud of what I've done so far. There isn't much, but as the series continues, I'm sure this area will look pretty different soon enough. So to leave off day 15, I crawled into bed after what I'd say was a pretty eventful day, and went to sleep. So yeah, that is the end of the first episode of my Minecraft Beta 100 Days series, and if you want to catch me live, go ahead and click the subscribe button and click the Discord server link in the description. I stream this series every Monday and Friday, and joining the Discord server is the best way to stay up to date with all my content. Thank you so much for watching, my name is Z-Train, and I will see you all in the next episode. See ya!